that.
Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to Blood Sisterz, the podcast where we sit in a wood-paneled room in a basement in Wisconsin and talk about creepy stuff because we're not creepy enough. I am one half of Blood Sisterz, Christina Mata, and I am here with my other half, Natasha Carr. Hello, Natasha.
Hey, everybody out there in Creepy Land.
Creepy Land.
Creepy
Kind of like
Land.
Candyland, but creepy.
Yes.
That's very nice.
You know what's sad? I never thought about the fact that we're talking about these sick serial killers. Some people, some of them, justified. And we're trapped in a basement.
We are.
We're two girls trapped in a wood-paneled basement.
Yeah. With a
creepy paintings.
With a dude, a painting back there. We got oh shit, I didn't turn this on. We'll turn it on right now. We got some torches here for light, because that'll really change the whole scene. There we are.
Some weird white guy in a black frame.
That's a lady, okay?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I didn't see that. Oh, I just seen the forehead.
And it's like a little silhouette thing, okay?
Yeah. Well, welcome to our creepy ass show, everybody.
Welcome to the Creep Show. Actually, that is a real show. It's called the Creep Show. I guess we're not the Creep Show, but we are Blood Sisterz and we are creepy. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Today we are talking about a dude by the name of Harold Shipman. And when I started typing up information about him and learning more about him, I just started typing Shitman.
Yes, I
Very
love
much a
that.
Shitman.
Harold Shipman.
Go Shitman.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Harold Frederick Shipman, known as Fred, was born January 14, 1946 in Nottingham, England. Now, Christina, I don't know if you know your zodiac signs, but Mr. Shipman is a Capricorn. He's my fellow Earth sign brother.
Really?
Yeah, good old Capricorn.
Holy camole.
My father's a Capricorn. I got daddy issues. I don't like him already. But shout out to all my Earth signs. Now, Harold was born to Harold Shipman Sr. in Vera, Britain. He was the second child and oldest son. Now, I couldn't find a lot of information on his big sis Pauline and his baby bro Clive, but I love his name.
Clive.
Yes, Clive was his younger brother's name. Now, his father was a lorry driver, whatever the hell that means. And his parents were described as devout Methodists. And they were also from the working class, a stand-up family in Manchester, right? He had a pretty fairly background childhood. Now, growing up, Harold was an amazing rugby player in youth leagues. He was a great distance runner, and in his final year in school, he served as vice captain of the athletics team. He was extremely close to his mother, and as a middle child, he was clearly her favorite. It is said that early on, she instilled a sense of superiority in him that affected most of his relationships that he would go on to have later in life.
Yikes.
Yeah, this guy was an arrogant little SOB. Now, Harold, he was isolated as an adolescent with very few friends, as you can imagine. A lot of people didn't like him. So when his mother and best friend became sick, suffering from lung cancer, this, of course, affected him deeply. In the later stages of her sickness, he oversaw her care and he witnessed the morphine rid his mother's body of pain, and that positive effect of the morphine fascinated him. And keep that in mind, because that's going to come up a little later when Christina holla at y'all about what he actually did. So his mother, Vera, she was born December 23rd, 1919, and she died June 21st, 1963 at the young age of 43 when Harold was only 17 years old.
Wow.
Now, Harold, of course, is devastated by the loss of his mother, and he is determined to go to medical school. So we got a bright side out of it, right?
Sure.
He took care of his sickly mother, dying slowly of lung cancer. He was so amazed by modern medicine that he decided, I'm going to give my life over and go to medical school, right? So Harold was admitted to Leeds University Medical School for training 2 years. And 2 years later, after failing his entrance exams the first time, he started serving at the hospital as an intern, right? Now, he's still a loner at this point in his life, and he meets his future wife, Primrose.
Primrose.
I love that name from, what was it, Katniss and them? Hunger Games? Yeah, her little sister's
I've never seen Hunger Games. Never seen Hunger Games. But when you said Katniss, I was like, oh, that's Jennifer Lawrence's character, isn't it?
You think you know a person. Anyway, Primrose was 17 and Harold was 19. They met on a bus stop. Penrose worked as a window dresser in town, and Harold, of course, like I just told you, he was at his first year of medical school at Leeds. They went on a cute little date to a local coffee shop, and they have been together ever since that day. Now, these good Christians, remember, right? They ended up getting freaky deaky pretty fast, and Penrose got pregnant, right? So now, while she's 5 months pregnant, the parents are like, yo, you got to put a ring on it. Like, you know, we Christian, and y'all just, how you going to get my girl pregnant, right? Classic. So they go on to get married in 1966, and they have a total of 4 children, 3 sons, one named Sam, David, Christopher, and a daughter named Sarah. Now, very little was known about their children, as all of them went on to change their names following their father's arrest. Dun, 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 dun. In 1970, he received his medical degree from Leeds, and Harold goes on to start working as a general practitioner. In 1974, at the Abraham Ormerod Medical Center in Todmorden.
Todmorden?
I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong, but I'm going to say it with confidence.
That's fine. Yeah, that's good. Confidence gets you through a lot.
That part.
Right.
Now, a year later, you know what we should do? Sidebar. We're probably going to stop. I'm going to force myself to learn how to say these names before we go on air.
That would make sense and be smart on our part, for sure.
'Cause I feel like we just be winging it with these names, but I'm going to actually learn how to say some of these names. I promise you guys.
We can only hold on to the I went to MPS excuse for so long.
Right. At this point, it's just being reckless. So a year later, in 1975, it was discovered that he was forging prescriptions for the opiate pethidine. I said that right?
I think so. Sounds right.
Perfect. Which he had become addicted to, and he was forced out of his practice into drug rehabilitation. He forged large amounts of this drug, which is why they ended up catching him. He ended up telling his colleague, Dr. J. Michael Grieve, I am afraid I am an addict. And if you just stand by me, I will get off of it and we will be well. He pled guilty to 8 drug charges and was fined $682 US. And after he got treatment, they considered him cured and he was allowed to practice again. A few years later, in 1977, he began working as a general practitioner in Hyde, Manchester at Donnybrook Medical Center. He was described as a hard-working doctor who enjoyed the trust of patients and colleagues alike. He did have a reputation of being arrogant, of course, because, he didn't lose that amongst the less seasoned staff. But other than that, everyone thought he was a great guy. He was a great doctor. He went on to work in Hyde for almost 2 decades throughout the 80s, with no one noting anything weird about his character or patients passing underneath him. I will mention that during this time, his father did pass 9 days before little Harold's birthday. So Harold Sr. was born May 12, 1914, and died January 5, 1985, at the age of 71. Harold went on to have his own practice in 1993, where he again was loved and respected. It was said that he registered approximately 3,000 patients until something else happened. And I'll leave that. Dun, 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 dun.
So, Harold is estimated to have killed around 250 people starting as early as 1971. Like Natasha said, he started practicing in 1970. So it didn't take very long for him to start getting right to it. So this dude was lying and scheming for a long ass time, but a pattern started emerging, which again started to make people feel a little suspicious of what he was doing. The most notable and most recent instance was a doctor by the name of Dr. Linda Reynolds. This happened in 1998, so this was a long span of time, over 20 years, where he was just doing all of his murdering shit. So Linda Reynolds was also a general practitioner. She worked close to Shipman and had started noticing that he was losing a much larger percentage of his patients than what was typical. Also, just a thought, he was a general practitioner. So I had to look up a lot of these words because they lived in England. So they say general practitioner. I'm like, I'm guessing that just means like a primary care physician.
Yeah.
Probably same thing. Sounds the same, I'm sure. But
Good
I
assumption.
Started Googling all this stuff. I'm like, what are these words? What do they mean? But yes, he was a general practitioner. So he's basically like a family practice doctor. So these are the doctors that just do like checkups and shit. So he wasn't an oncologist dealing with cancer patients. He wasn't dealing with hospice patients. Many of these victims were like, they didn't really have health issues aside from just like being old. Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't able to find a whole lot on his earliest victims, but after Dr. Reynolds noticed Shipman's knack for losing his patients, she went to John Pollard, who was the local coroner, and expressed her concerns. This sparked an investigation which actually went nowhere, but even after that investigation wrapped up, he would still go on to kill another 3 patients. So this dude had a lot of nerve. He probably thought by this time he could pretty much get away with anything and just kept going. So the final of these last 3 victims was named Kathleen Gundy. Now, this is the only patient or victim that I really only seem to find information on. So Kathleen was a former mayoress, so she was a mayor. But since she's a lady, they called it
that's sexy.
a mayoress. I know.
I gotta run for office just so somebody can call me a mayoress. I ain't gonna do shit, but
I want a sash that says mayoress.
Okay.
And then just like wear panties.
First
and,
hot
like,
girl
some
mayor.
heels. Yes. Well, I know the election's already coming up. Maybe next time we can run.
Right.
Just in that the whole time. Do speeches. Anyway, I think my mind's going in a very sexy place right now. So Kathleen was a former mayoress who was really social and active, but died suddenly at the age of 81. So I
love how at 81 is suddenly.
I know. It seemed so sudden because she was like active. She was going out. She was with her friends. She was doing all this stuff. And then 81, bam, just out of nowhere, she's just dead. So, mayoress. Rest in peace, mayoress. So the situation started to get really weird after her death because in her will, she apparently left her entire 300,000 pound estate to her doctor out of all the people in the world. So I did look up how much 300,000 pounds is. Apparently it's about $341,000. So not that much of a difference, but back in 1998, it's probably a shit ton of money. So Kathleen's daughter actually had the real will that had been made over 10 years prior to her death.
Wow.
So this fake ass will required 2 witness signatures, and it was found that the will was actually signed by 2 of his other patients. So one patient came forward and told the story of how he came to sign this document. So
what? I know. Did they read it or just blindly signed it?
Oh,
okay. I'm sorry. I got excited.
No. Exactly, though. It's like, how the hell? Yeah. So he said that he was called into Shipman's office, and Shipman was there with Kathleen Gundy, obviously, while she was still alive.
Right.
The doctor asked him if he wouldn't mind signing a document and said that it was regarding a survey on aging. So the doctor then asked Kathleen if she was okay with him signing it. She said yes. So Shipman slid the paper over to this guy, and he said that when it was slid over to him, it was folded over, so he couldn't actually see anything on the document. All he could see was the line that he had to sign. So it's just a folded over piece of paper. This is a survey on aging.
Right.
He goes, okay. So, of course, Kathleen would die shortly after on June 24th, 1998. And Shipman would go on to say that it was due to old age or natural causes. Of course, she's 81. No one's probably going to question that, especially if her doctor says that. Now, with all the strange coincidences surrounding the situation, an investigation did start with the will. So Kathleen's body was exhumed, and a toxicology report stated that she was killed by a large amount of diamorphine, which I guess is heroin.
Yeah.
Which is typically used on dying cancer patients. Coming full circle with his mom. The amount that was used on her indicates that she would have died in a very short amount of time. Like, just, yeah. Shipman even went as far as to say that Kathleen had a heroin addiction.
I see.
And that was her actual cause of death. Like, okay, toots.
Sure. At 81, I mean, well, I guess anything's possible, but I would think that maybe you wouldn't make it to 81 if you had a heroin addiction.
Right.
And then who at the age of 79 is like, you know what I'm going to do? Some crack. I mean, well, heroin.
I was a mayoress. I've lived all my dreams. I'm feeling great. Let's take some heroin. Let's
try
go. Why not?
Okay, Kathleen, live your life.
Right. I'm like, okay, that's what you want to do. But I don't think that's what actually happened. unfortunately. So, while Grundy seems to be the only victim I can find actual information on, there was an identified pattern here that he used with his patients. So, not very bloody and gory, but very methodical and calculated. So, the victims were all single women living at home on their own. They would be overdosed with this diamorphine in their home, and these victims would be found still in their what they called day clothes in the middle of the day. So just in their regular clothes that they wear every day, they were found in the middle of the day on the afternoon, like just sitting in their chair as if they were going about their day to day, and suddenly died. So usually if someone dies of natural causes, I guess it's usually going to be like
In their sleep?
bed, in their sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And this was just all in the middle of the day. He would then sign the death certificate saying that it was due to natural causes, and this is pretty much how he got away with it for so many years. Apparently, Shipman also signed a lot of cremation documentation, so I'm speculating maybe he would try to convince the families to cremate to get rid of any evidence.
That man was smart.
Right? Ugh, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's like, why couldn't you be stupid? Wouldn't have gotten away with so much.
Yeah.
So all of this evidence led to Shipman eventually being arrested on September 7th of 1998.
You know you love to list off the victims. Did you want to?
You looking at my computer?
No, so honestly, I just happened to look down now, but I know you love listing off all of the victims.
Oh, I'm sweating.
Don't be sweating, girl.
Okay.
Show them their proper honor.
Yeah. Okay. So the victims that he was charged with, 15. I will list them off. We have Marie West, Irene Turner, Lizzie Adams, Jean Lilly, Ivy Lomas. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that again. Ivy Lomas, Muriel Grimshaw, Marie Quinn, Kathleen Wagstaff, Bianca Pomfret, Nora Nuttall, Pamela Hillier, Maureen Ward, Winifred Milor, Joan Melia, and finally Kathleen Gundy.
Rest in peace, ladies. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So
Grundy, I'm sorry.
Grundy, yeah. They knew what you meant. Stupid Christina. I found too what I thought was interesting in August of 1998. I guess this taxi driver by the name of John Shaw. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
He actually informed the police that he suspected that Shipman. You got me saying Shipman was killing his patients because after as many as 21, because after he would take these elderly women to the medical center, they all died in his care. And he's like, all these patients of mine, well, clients of mine, they all seem to be in good health. And then all of a sudden they just died.
Yeah.
And nobody listened to this guy.
Right.
So now we're at the trial, right? So the cops have already arrested Harold because of Mrs. Grundy. The trial began at Preston Crown Court on October 5th, 1999. And as Xtina mentioned, as she takes a shot, he was being charged charged of murdering 15 women by lethal injection of diamorphine between 1995 and 1998. Police were able to investigate and confirm by exhuming the bodies and doing autopsies that 15 cases where Shipman had administered the lethal doses of diamorphine and falsely registered the patient's deaths and edited their medical history to show that they were deathly ill. Now, in most cases, he would alter the medical notes directly after killing these patients to ensure that his account matched the historical records. Now, what this fool didn't think about was that after each alteration that you made to the records, it would be time-stamped on the computer. So it made it easy for the cops to come in and be like, we know exactly which records you altered, my boy. Like, we see it right here. So due to his victim, Kathleen Grundy, having that alleged forgery of her will situation, the legal team did successfully tie a lot of these cases to him. Now, they did try to get him tried for that murder, allegedly, separately. I guess they figured like it might soften the blow if he was being charged with 14 and not 15 due to the circumstances of having like that forgery situation too. But they were unsuccessful, and the courts was like, nah, we charging, we gonna try to prosecute from everything. Now, prosecution stated that he killed these patients because he enjoyed exercising control over life and death. And they dismissed the claim that he was acting compassionately, as none of his victims, like Christina mentioned earlier, were terminally ill. This is a family doctor. There's no reason why he needed to use the morphine. Well, some of them, but he would always like convince them to allow him to use this, the needle. What is it called? Now, Kathleen's daughter, Angela, she was the first witness, and she did an amazing job on the stand. When the defense tried to undermine her, they failed horribly. Then they called up the government pathologist, and he talked about all of the post-mortem morphine overdoses that were found. Kathleen's signature on her will was proven forged by a handwriting expert who called it a crude forgery. And they had a police computer analyst testify on how Harold altered all of his computer records to create symptoms in his patients that they never had within hours of their deaths. I mean, they called everybody to the stand. Now, the relatives talked about his lack of compassion and disregard for their wishes. He was reluctant to attempt to revive his patients, and it came out that he would pretend to call 911 in the presence of the relatives and then cancel the call when it was discovered that his patients were dead. They pulled his phone records, found out that this asshole never actually made any phone calls to 911.
Of course.
Yep. So the evidence also came out of him hoarding drugs. He would false prescribe patients morphine who didn't need it, over prescribe patients who did need it. And then there was proof of a visit, like some of the recent visits, that he went back to the deceased homes to collect unused drug supplies for disposal.
Sure. Let me make sure I dispose of it properly.
Right. Exactly. He just hoarded all of this, all of the morphine. Now, his defense team tried to paint him as a dedicated healthcare professional, but our boy is mad arrogant, so they failed horribly on this. And on January 31st, 2000, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury unanimously found Shipman guilty of all 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery.
Take that, Shipman.
Ha! Take that, Shipman. Ha! Now, Justice Forbes sentenced him to life imprisonment on all 15 counts with the recommendation of no possibility of parole. And then she added an additional 4 years for forging Kathleen's will. So he got 15 life sentences plus 4 years in case he survived that.
Plus 4, just in case.
We're going to sprinkle a little bit of extra on there just in case he do live out these 15 life sentences.
Yeah. You ever had, like, when I was a kid and they would say something about there being however many life sentences, I was like, does that mean that he's going to die there and they're just going to still keep him in prison?
Right.
Like, I didn't know that just meant, like, there's just no chance of you getting out. Like, you die.
Why don't they say that, though? Because some of us, I remember being confused about that, too, when I first heard it. Just like, wait, how many lives he got?
Right. Is this a cat?
Right.
They're just keeping his dead body in a cell.
Bringing him back to life just so he can continue to, like, dude, that would suck.
You're going to come back and you're going to live out another one.
Exactly, from birth. Now, authorities could have brought many more additional charges, of course, but due to the publicity surrounding the original trial, they believed it would just be impossible to have a fair trial, which I did agree with, because no jury is going to be, they're not going to be able to find any jurors that are going to come in and be like, you know what? Right. I'm not going to be biased. I'm just going to listen to the facts. Like, nah. Yeah. Now, he was originally incarcerated in Manchester prison, but moved to HMP Franklin in Durham. And then he was eventually moved to Wakefield prison in West Yorkshire, or Yorkshire, however they say that over there.
Yorkshire.
Who knows? Yorkshire.
I know they say both. Battery like battery. That's kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Battery. So fun fact that I found, I don't know if you knew this, he became friends with fellow serial killer Peter Moore while in prison. Now, Peter, by the way, was convicted of stabbing to death and mutilating 4 men between September and December of 1995, just for fun. He also had 39 sex attacks on men in North Wales over a 20-year period. So that's who our boy decided to become best friends with. Sex attacks. That's how they described it.
Make it sound like it's a good thing.
Right.
Jeez.
It's sex attacks.
Yikes.
39 men. So Primrose, at this point, talking about his wife, she was married to Harold for 40 years when these trials began.
Yikes.
And people to this day believe that she had no idea that he committed these crimes. And she maintained his innocence throughout the trial as well. She wrote him a letter in prison saying, "Tell me everything, no matter what." Now, what I found weird is the response was not found. But I could have swore they monitored the mail. At least they did with my uncles. Like they knew anything that we was trying to
Yeah.
write to my uncle.
Yeah, you like get your mail to you already opened, you know.
Exactly.
And everything's inspected before it goes out too.
Right. So I don't know why they pretended they couldn't see his response to her.
That's strange. I had that from my dad too.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you know what? We're speaking from the place of the states. Maybe they give them a little bit more privacy over there.
Maybe. Yeah. That's a completely different country. Absolutely.
So Primrose, his wife, was a regular visitor after his sentencing. So clearly she did not believe he did it, or she simply did not care. She even moved closer to the prison so that she could see him regularly. He refused taking part in courses, which would have encouraged him to acknowledge what he did and give these poor victims' families some closure. But he refused every time because it would mean that he would temporarily lose his privileges to talk to his wife so often.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Now, where is Mr. Shipman, you may be asking today? Because this was fairly recent, 2000. We're all still living, right? Well, Mr. Shipman used his bed linens in prison to hang himself from the window bars in his Wakefield prison cell on January 13th, 2004 at 6:20 a.m., a day before his 58th birthday.
A dweeb.
Okay, little coward. So at 8:10 a.m., he was pronounced dead. Some of the victims' families were rightfully so upset, and they felt like they were cheated. They never heard his confession or discovered why he did what he did, because he maintained his innocence the entire time. The Daily Mirror brand called him a cold coward and condemned the prison for allowing his suicide to happen. What I found interesting is that it was suggested that whole life sentencing should be replaced by indefinite sentencing so that this would give prisoners the hope of eventual release and reduce the risk of them ending their own life. It would also make managing them easier for prison officials if they had hope, which I kind of agree with. Even if you're never going to let them out, give them a false sense of hope. You ain't got to tell them that.
Give them some false hope.
Yeah, so they don't kill them, so people can see justice. But it is really expensive to keep those men alive. I'm sorry, we're not going to go up to that tangent.
It is. No, that's true. Yeah.
So people believe his decision to kill himself may have come from his wife beginning to suspect his guilt, but I believe in the other theory. Now, Primrose was going to receive a pension lump sum if he died before his 60th birthday due to a loophole. Yes. So it's suspected that he killed himself to ensure that she would get the money. One probation officer even reported a year prior he mentioned the suicide in his pension, but due to the bond he had with his wife, he said he would never kill himself. Killing himself before he turned 60 ensured that she would get a tax-free lump sum of more than $113,000 and an annual pension of about $11,316. If he lived beyond 60, she would only receive half pension of about a little over $5,000 yearly with no lump sum. So Primrose was awarded the survival benefits due to his death, and the victims' families were pissed because they had been told that once he was convicted, he forfeited his pension altogether.
You'd think that.
It makes sense.
Especially since it's due to like complete malpractice in the most extreme sense you could ever think of.
And the fact that he was charged or suspected of killing over 200 people and you're going to give that money to his wife and not the victims' families? Now, after his body was released to his family, it remained in the morgue for more than a year, despite false reports that he had a funeral. The police advised against burying him in case the grave was attacked, which I'm sure it would have been. He was eventually cremated on March 19, 2005 at his Hutcliffe Wood Crematorium. And even after his children changed their names after his conviction, all four, along with their mother, were the only ones to attend his cremation, which was held outside of business hours to avoid a mob coming down there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Huh. And you did mention earlier about them thinking that he killed someone within the first year of getting his license. Yeah. So it was 67-year-old Margaret Thompson.
Ooh.
Yep. Killed her in March 1971 while she was recovering from a stroke. But the deaths prior to 1975 were never officially proven. So that's why it's just kind of like something that's assumed.
Okay. I was gonna say, I don't see Margaret on my list of
yep.
people, but I got it.
It was just assumed. So they did end up, lastly, because I know I'm throwing a lot of information at y'all, but I was on my Christine. I know. It switched this week. I'm going to go back to just being like, they lived, they died. But I wanted to channel my inner Christina this week and give y'all some information.
How does it feel?
Like I'm talking too damn much.
True.
I feel like I am rambling, but it's all good information.
Chilling. I'm like,
right. It was all useful information. He did have a really interesting trial, so I didn't want to leave out any details and cover the full trial. So lastly, I promise, in January 2001, police detective Chris Gregg led an investigation into 22 of the West Yorkshire deaths. Now, following this audit, which is what Christina kind of mentioned earlier, they found that there were clusters of deaths throughout different times and days. And it was concluded that he killed at least 218 patients from 1975 to 1998. Again, reminding you what Christina said, most of these are all women in relatively good health. Now, Judge Smith suspected that he killed a 4-year-old girl during his early stages of his medical career at Pontefract General Infirmary. I know I said that wrong. Pontefract. Right? So in total, 459 people died while under this man's care, but it cannot be confirmed how many were actually murder victims. That number alone for a doctor to lose, I think, is just ridiculously high, right?
That seems incredibly high, especially for a general practitioner. Yes.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
So the GMC charged 6 doctors who signed cremation forms for Shipman's victims with misconduct, because how the hell y'all not speaking up? Like, y'all just keep signing off on these forms. Yeah, you knew something was off. And they were all found not guilty, by the way. And in 2005, a similar hearing was held for 2 doctors who did not check when Shipman deliberately administered what they described a grossly excessive dose of morphine. They suspect he stole jewelry from his victims because in 1998, they seized over 10,000 worth of jewelry from his garage. And in 2005, Primrose Ass had the audacity to ask that the jewelry be returned to her.
To her?
To her. So the police wrote the families and the victims asking them, hey, identify any jewelry that you recognize, and we're going to give that back to you. And then the unidentified items were handed over to the assets recovery team in May. And in August of that same year, 66 pieces were returned to Primrose. And the authorities auctioned off 33 pieces that she confirmed were not hers. Now, here's what's messed up. So proceeds to the auction, it went to the Tameside Victim Support. The only piece out of all these pieces that was returned to a murdered patient's family was a platinum diamond ring, which the family had to prove through photographic evidence that it belonged to her. So the reason why most of these families did not get anything returned to them, because they had no proof that it belonged to their deceased relative. So they just auctioned it off.
Their families died.
Yep. And you told them, hey, guys, look at these pictures. And if you recognize anything, send us proof and we will give it back to you. Or we're just going to sell it.
Proof.
Yep.
And even if they do decide, hey, you know what? My family member died. Let me get a nice necklace out of it. Fuck, give it to him. Who gives a shit?
But you returned all 66 pieces back to Primrose. And she's already getting this big payout. So a memorial garden
got no morals, okay,
at all. She's living good. So a memorial garden to the Shipman's victims was built, called the Garden of Tranquility, opened in Hyde Park, July 30th, 2005. And years later, over 200 of the victims of Shipman's families, they were still seeking compensation for their loss. He was truly one of the most prolific serial killers of our time.
Yikes.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
It's a lot of information I just threw at y'all. I know. But I mean, I wonder if someone who you love turned out to be a serial killer, could you support them publicly? Like I'm talking, and I'm not talking like a husband, because they're kind of disposable. But say like the person you love the most. For me, don't be offended, Shonda. My mother. If it came out that she were a serial killer, I might have to support her.
Yeah, I think when I think about my grandma, I mean, she's passed away, but if I were to think about her having been a serial killer, I probably would have been like, that wasn't right, but I'm still going to love you and be here for you.
Yeah. So I think it's shitty what Primrose did. I definitely would have given the money to the victims' families, but I understand her supporting. I mean, she was married to this man for 40 years.
I think I probably would have been a little bit of like a morality police type of person and been like, the right thing to do right now would be to do this or to do that. But I would still never leave her side. No.
Yeah, yeah. I'd move closer to the prison too, because it's like I'm here for you, mom. What you did wasn't right. I don't understand why you did it, but goddamn, you're my mom.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So that's the story of Harold Shipman.
Stupid shit.
Yeah. Over 400 patients died in his care.
I was just thinking about Massachusetts. I was trying to think of how I could tie the two together, like Massachusetts and Harold Shipman, but they're completely different countries, and I was thinking way too hard about it, so I thought I'd just admit what I was doing.
Okay. We still love you.
Thanks.
So this week's question, guys, if anyone, not anyone, because I feel like we've asked kind of a similar question in the past, but if the person you love the most in this world was convicted of being a serial killer, could you publicly still support them?
Could you?
I'm done talking for today. You end it.
Oh, shit.
I'm tired of talking. My mouth is tired. I'm done.
Right. It's like your mouth gets dry and it's just like you're over it. So
like in everyday life, guys, if you know me, you know, like I used to be very extroverted, but then in my later years, I am extremely standoffish and I hate speaking to people. This is the most I talk throughout the week. Like I just don't interact with humans.
I feel that.
So my mouth is tired. I'm done.
Your mouth is tired and not for a fun reason. Yikes. So with that, we are Blood Sisters, Christina and Natasha. Until next week, have a good time. What did I say last week? Make sure to drink your Red Bull and your coffee and make sure to live your life, dog.
All right, we're out. It's getting real gangsta up in here. Getting real Bayview gangsta. We're out. See y'all next week.
Oh no.